Hey there, and welcome to the People Who Help People podcast. This is the spot for HR and people ops pros who are all about building better businesses by putting people first. We chat with founders and experts who've been there, done that, and are generous enough to share what actually works. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello again. Today I'm happy to be speaking with Robin Levitt, President at 4D Executive Search, about giving back and growing stronger. I like how she describes herself on LinkedIn as an empath and someone who's always honored long-term relationships. I carry that care into everything I do. I build community everywhere I go, and I show up whether there's business to be done or not. I believe in helping however I can, connecting people, making introductions, and sharing insight. This work is personal, always has been. Welcome to the podcast, Robin.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your journey and founding 4D Executive Search.
Yeah. So I will try and make this short, but
Okay.
It's hard to bring it all together. But I grew up in a high school where we were taught to do community service a long time ago, before it was hip and cool and every other school did it. And, and then I grew up with parents who always gave back. And so that's just always been part of who I am. I was speaking in group homes when I was 16 years old about AIDS education. And my dad has been on the field at Palisades High School for 35 plus years since my brother played there. They call him Coach Joe, and he helped a lot of kids who couldn't afford meals before they played football games. And he got Gladstone's restaurant to host pregame meals, and he still does that in his 80s every single Friday night, whether he feels good or he doesn't.
Wow.
And so giving back is really just at the core of who I am and how I was raised. And my dad told me, he's like, you're going to go into sales. And I didn't know what that meant. And then I came across the recruiting industry. And the minute I came across it, I knew that that was what I was meant to do, because it was the perfect intersection between helping people and really working with people through what is oftentimes a scary, intimidating moment, which is transitioning career. And it's business, which I love. I've always loved business. And so to me, this journey has really been the intersection of those two things. And I have been doing this now for 28 years, and I still love what I do.
Wow. I love that. First of all, I love the story of Coach Joe, and that Coach Joe is still going strong.
He could have surgery on Tuesday and he'll show up at football on Friday. It doesn't matter.
Love it. Love it. But then I also love how he gave you some ideas and you ran with them. He said, you're going to go into sales. And you did. And you've woven in giving back and made that central to what you do. So tell me a little bit more about 4D Executive Search. What does that mean?
So there's a couple of different ways we can talk about it. So the concept of 4D is about looking at people and situations with a different dimension, a fourth dimension, if you will. And so when we are talking to people and when I'm connecting with people, I'm not just looking at a resume. I'm not just looking at their history. I'm looking at values. I'm looking at who is the human behind the conversation and the resume. And I think when you really look at an individual's motivations and when you look at who they are, what their values are, what their truths are, and you connect that and align that with the company, and you not only align their technical capabilities, but you align their values on a different dimension, that's really what is ultimately made for long-term fits and long-term employment with the people that I've placed, and transparency throughout that entire process. So that's really where the concept of 4D came from, is that fourth dimension. And then just to tie it a little bit into what we were talking about before, is not only do I do the search and not only do I work with the companies in that moment, but I'm always there to help. If they want to ask me questions that aren't part of the business proposal that we've submitted, I'm here to answer their questions. I'm here to make introductions. And at the end of that process, in all of the searches we've done for companies, we always give a portion back to charities. And each year depending on what's going on, we've given to different types of charities. I grew up in the Pacific Palisades, so this year we were able to give back to some of the schools. I have three very, very dear friends that have beaten, overcome blood cancer, and I just did a big fundraiser for blood cancer. And there are other times where homelessness in Los Angeles has been a huge issue, and trying to help people get back to jobs and get them off the street to be employed. And so there are a lot of different charities. I have another best friend who's an ophthalmologist, and she tries to do several eye surgeries for people who couldn't otherwise be able to get their eyesight back. And so we've donated to her. So there's a lot of causes that 4D has been able to show up and support through the work that we've done with other companies. And that is always and will always be a through line that we're lucky enough to do this business. And we always want to go back, because I just live in a what goes around comes around world. And I feel really lucky to have had the business I've had for 28 years.
I love how you've connected that. I love how you connected the start to making it part of your business, not just a personal mission, but a professional one as well. Thanks in part to Coach Joe and his influences. So, but carrying forward with causes that matter to you. Speaking of causes that matter to you, you and I were speaking earlier about the Women's Coaching Alliance, or Women's Coaching Alliance. Can you tell me more about that and some of your involvement there?
Yeah, it's an amazing organization that I got involved in. I've been raising children for the last 20 years, and I didn't have as much time to give back in time. I've always given money back, but I didn't have as much time to give. And so as my kids have gotten older and more independent, it was important to me to get involved in organizations again. And one of the organizations that I'm giving time back to is the Women's Coaching Alliance. And the reason is I'm just so passionate about supporting women in business and their journeys. There's so much we do. It's not to say that I don't support the men, because I do very much, but I just think there's so much opportunity. And especially as a mom to a daughter, I want all these girls to understand what leadership opportunities they have. I want them to be given opportunities and to see what women have accomplished in their careers. So the Women's Coaching Alliance is an organization where we hire young women between the age of 15 and 26 to work as coaches in different sports. And it could be basketball, it could be volleyball, it could be tennis, it could be soccer. And we have mentors for these young women that have come out of either maybe they've been coaches previously, or maybe they are leaders within corporate organizations, and they mentor these young women on how to be effective coaches in these sports. And the goal is twofold. It's to, on the one hand, inspire more female coaches to enter the field of coaching, because we're trying to even that playing field. And it's, if they don't want to go into coaching, that they learn skills early on how to be an effective leader if they go into corporate America. And so we bring in amazing mentors. We teach them. We have speakers. There's a lot of different events, and it's really an incredible organization that I'm super passionate about building and expanding. And so we've started doing that over the last year or so.
That too sounds like an amazing cause, and as a father to a daughter, I'd love for her to be involved in something like that. So I'm going to recommend that she check it out.
She should.
You
and I'm
mentioned
also involved in, I know you were a veteran.
Yes.
Right. We also, my daughter and I also have done a lot of work over the last year, and we'll continue with Operation Gratitude, something I'm also super passionate about. So that's another one. Those are my two.
Tell me about Operation Gratitude.
So Operation Gratitude is an organization that shows up for our working military. And when they are overseas, a lot of people may or may not have family to connect with, or they feel so detached from people back at home in the United States. And so Operation Gratitude, we send letters and care packages. And we also have these bears that have specific notes. And so when there's that moment when the children have to go through that moment of separation to say goodbye to their parent, we give them a bear that they can hold on to with a note that they can always hold on to and feel connected to their parent through this stuffed bear. And, I just have a tremendous amount of gratitude for our military and our veterans that have given their time on behalf of keeping all of us safe. And so that's something that's been really important to my daughter and myself.
Fabulous. So I know these things are personally important. Has there ever been a flow back into the business? Has anybody that you've met through charitable work engaged you as a business person?
Interestingly enough, not yet,
Okay,
but I think that, like I said, I didn't get to be involved with my time as much in the past. And I should also say, like, I don't do it for that reason.
sure. No,
You know, of course, it would be lovely if I could support organizations in both ways. But, the goal is really, I just believe that when you put out good energy comes back to you in one way or the other. And I just think that is, I don't know, I feel like a really lucky person in this life. And I don't think everybody is as lucky. And I want to show up and give back to people who may have had more struggles than.
I really like that. So a moment ago, you mentioned events. And another thing that you and I touched on was you recently participated in an event and it reminded you how much you enjoy
100%.
connecting in person. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. I think we're in a moment in time where there is so much technology, and technology can really help us in so many ways. And I think for many years, I've seen over time how, yes, it can speed things up. We could send out 100 emails, 1,000 emails to a million different people, and that can be beneficial. But what I've experienced, especially as somebody who's in the business of connecting people, and as we've talked about that, looking at people on a greater dimension than just the paperwork and their history, I started finding that we were losing the personal connection. And I don't think that's the greatest purpose of technology. I think it can help aid connection. But I think if we overuse it, we lose connection. And I found myself spending so much time thinking about which technology can I use and how can I use it and how can it speed things up, that I was losing what I love most about what I do, which is the personal connection. And I had an opportunity with a friend of mine that I reconnected with, and he had created an event called Strangers to Friends, which is all about that. And he said, "Does anybody want to host this with me?" And I immediately raised my hand because I want to be in person. I want to connect with people. I want that interaction to be real and truthful and show up for our community authentically. And it wasn't about sales and pitching. And it was like, what do we all need? Everybody needs something different. Let's show up and help each other out. And it was just that. It was an incredible event where we had 70 HR leaders come together in Los Angeles and middle of the day. And we went from a theater where we had a very intimate, amazing conversation. We called it the living room. And we had 70 people walk down the street in Santa Monica. And we ended up in a Mexican restaurant and ate some taquitos and quesadillas together and drank some margaritas. And then we walked down the street again together and we ended up at a hotel and we're talking and had some wine and some water. It's been an amazing reconnection with people. And it's the thing I want to focus the majority of my time on. I think, again, it doesn't mean no technology. It doesn't mean I won't use tools to, if I have a search, be able to get in touch with people faster in order to get results faster. That will be great. But I will continue to try and meet people and spend time with people in person. And I think for any business founder and anybody who's growing a business, it just reminds me that, yes, use the technology. It is helpful, but don't let it replace those personal conversations. I think it's a critical piece of growing a business right now.
I keep hearing that over and over and over again. It is let's let the technology do the things we don't enjoy doing, so that we can spend more time on those human things
Yeah.
and the authentic connections and that you emphasized. Speaking of humans, recently you took another human of significance to yourself into your business. Can you talk about what it's been like to work with your husband more closely these past 2 years?
Yeah, it's been surprisingly wonderful. It's hilarious. We are both very motivated, very driven, opinionated, strong-willed people. And so if you looked at a piece of paper and described both of us, I would have thought it would have been a nightmare. It's been incredible. It's really deepened our relationship. We are going to be together going on 26 years this May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it has. It's what we realized is it gave us a platform to see the best in each other. We have really different strengths, and it allowed us to show up in our best selves, which were different. But what he's great at, I'm not great at, and what I'm great at, he's not great at. And so it perfectly was this yin and yang moment in our life that has been pretty magical. It's really been surprising and fantastic. And again, I feel really lucky that 26 years in, we're laughing and we have another thing to talk about and partner on and build, and it's been really cool.
So it sounds I hear the outcome, but tell me about the process. Tell me about a little bit more about what he does and how it complements what you do, and how you merged your two businesses, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So Steve Levitt, my husband, has been a chief revenue officer for 30 years in private equity backed and growth companies in varying industries, software, cybersecurity, technology, digital agencies. And he built teams, he oversaw global teams, and he got to a point in his career where he transitioned out of one role. It was a PE company, and it shifted direction. So he transitioned and started consulting, and something that he loves doing, and he's done sporadically through his career, working one-on-one, coaching sales leaders and CEOs on how to build effective sales functions and teaching them how to lead as a human being and get the best out of people. And so he started doing that with companies. And one of his clients came to him one day and was like, "Do you place salespeople? I need to hire somebody." He's like, "Nope. Oh, wait, hold on. Yes, we do." And he said, "Actually, my wife has been recruiting people for 20 plus years, and I've been hiring people in sales for 30 years, and absolutely we can do that." And so what he's doing now is working as a operator recruiter coach. So what he'll do oftentimes is go in and work with leadership to determine what is lacking in the sales organization. So he starts many of his engagements in the consulting piece. And then oftentimes we'll realize that they may not have the right leader, or they need to add a leader, or they need to add SDRs, et cetera. And then from there, once he places the person, he then continues to follow up with them on the back end and operates as a coach to make sure that they're successful in what they do. He's incredibly bright and actually started his career in programming. So he's very, very, very technical as well. And so we wanted to expand into areas that we thought our clients really needed the most help. And so there's human resources, there's sales and technology and executive assistance. And so those are the areas that we've been placing people in together. Executive assistants, we have another partner who focuses on that because she started her career as one, and it's really a nuanced search to understand how to match an executive assistant to an executive. It's not easy. HR is very similar. People are, it's really easy for salespeople to sell themselves into an interview. But when you have a chief revenue officer who's been hiring all those salespeople, he can see through the snow pretty quickly and know if somebody is genuinely a good fit. And so it's been awesome. He's done a great job. I mean, he's hired several salespeople for a variety of companies, and they've done great. And he's built great relationships, and his clients are always thrilled and end up wanting to hire him. So
Perfect. Does he sometimes outsource a part of the search to you?
Yeah, I mean, if there is, it just depends, right? We look at what our bandwidth is. We have other people that work with us on the team. So I may bring in a search. For example, we're working on a director of IT search. He's really technical. It makes the most sense for him to have a lot of those conversations on the technical side and then me on the fit side. So we conquer and divide. And again, that's where we're just good at different things. On the sales side, if it's a big project, we may take different roles within the search and do it together, and we may bring in other people as well. So we have always stayed as a small firm, but we also have a massive community of people. And so depending on what the project is, we bring people in to augment what we can't handle at that moment, and then to work under us as contractors for whatever project we're managing. But we will always manage the project.
Got it. So I noticed on your website, part of the reason I found out about Steve working with you? One, you mentioned it on LinkedIn, but two, you've carved out a portion of your website for his business. And so it's, pardon me for saying this, but it looks like he's riding on the coattails of your success as he launches this parallel venture. How has he affected, or has he affected your business in any way? Other
Oh,
than, you two bring joy working together, how else has he made 4D even better?
massively. So I view myself as a storyteller and a connector, and I live up here, and I am not the project person. I'm not the technician. I don't love getting in the weeds of process and operations. And that's everything that he is also amazing at. I mean, he's a great relationship person, but he's a great operator. And so he's really helped a lot on the back end as we continue to build our outreach. And if it's technology, if it is project flow, if it is marketing, he's great at. So a lot of the back end stuff that allows me to propel my relationships forward is what he's building behind the scenes. And that's really where that yin and yang has been, is because he's so good at that. And that's not my expertise.
Fabulous. So it can't all be as wonderful as you say. Has there been any downsides, and or if somebody else was thinking about going into a relationship with a partner, a close partner, any precautions? Any things you did that you're happy you did, or any things you wish you had done as you were getting started working together?
I think one of the biggest things we have done is created a language where when we need to not be in work mode together and we need to be in family mode, relationship mode, partnership mode, is the respect between one another to say, I'm done with work for the day. Like, I do not want to talk about work. And there are nights when I'm so excited about a work project and I just want to talk about this big work project, and he's done with work for the day, and vice versa. And really respecting and not pushing past that line. When somebody says I'm done and I need to be in home mode and not work mode, it's done, and we move on right then and there. And there are nights sometimes where we do talk about work, but we really try and make it where that is not all day every day, and so it hasn't overtaken our relationship. We still set aside date nights where we don't talk about work, or we take a walk and we say this is a non-work walk, and there are other walks that are work walks, and that's helpful too. So I think having those boundaries is really, really important. We also entered into it slowly. It wasn't just we're going to build this massive company and let's just try it. It built over time, and it just kept working better and better and better. But I would say that if you're thinking about it with a spouse, to really look at what those boundaries are and how do you make sure that your work relationship doesn't take over your personal relationship, because those are two really different relationships, and they have to stay separated, and there has to be room for both.
I like the idea of work walks and non-work walks, and because you can get a lot done on a walk. But
Yeah,
then
but
there's
and we
times
have to
in,
call it out. There are
yeah,
times when,
yeah.
and it could just be, I just need to decompress, or I need to talk about something. And so just getting really clear on what the intention is for whatever that moment is. And we also, having other things to talk about. We're huge Dodgers fans. Like, this was a big moment. I think, we sat
Wow.
on the couch for I don't even know how many hours over the last couple months
I
watching Dodger games. So we have other things. And so I think if you are in partnership, making sure you still have other things other than work, and that those connections are really fed.
Congratulations on the Dodgers win. The
Thank you.
back-to-back Dodgers wins. So
It was mind blowing and shocking, and the most excited. There was a lot of screaming in this house.
I bet there was. I bet there was. And it was on a little bit earlier for you than for me. I turned it off when it was 4-3 and Toronto was leading, and I thought,
You
meh.
did.
But I,
I had
I,
a lot of
I know
empathy
what I
for
missed.
my family and friends who stayed up late enough to watch the end, because I don't stay up late. So I was really happy I was on the West Coast.
Good. Very good. Turned out well. Good finish. So,
Yeah.
so let's finish on this.
Yeah.
You started a podcast,
Yes.
and tell me a little bit more about the what you like to accomplish with the podcast, what you're highlighting, and what some of the challenges have been getting that launched. And why did you even launch it in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely challenges. Let's see where to start. So the name of the podcast is called The Naked Truth. And it is where I interview women leaders and talk about their story and their journey to leadership. In the goal, there's sort of a twofold goal. On the one hand, it's to give voice to women to not feel alone in this journey, because there's a lot of challenges that are unique to women in the journey, especially particularly mothers. There's that is one in particular, but a lot of women or women who are not mothers, and people look at them and wonder why they're not mothers, or there's judgment on one side or the other. There's a lot wrapped around that. Also, as caretakers, there's, not to say men don't do it. Many, I think more women tend to live in that caretaker role with their parents. Again, no shade to men at all. I want to be very clear about that. But there's a lot of unique things, and I wanted to highlight that. And because I ended up on calls and talking to so many women who were so worried, like, oh my God, I took time off to go take care of my ailing parents. What's that going to look like on my resume? And people felt so alone or shamed by it. And I just wanted to bring to light that they're not alone. And then I also wanted to have space for our future female leaders to hear these stories from the women who have made it and who have become amazing leaders and have tackled these challenges as they grew through corporate America or as individual founders, and how they grew their career, and just showing up for one another and giving voice to that. In terms of the challenges, as a mom, as a wife, there's only so many hours in the day, and building this other business. And like I said earlier, I am just not a great operator. So I just have done this kind of posting it on YouTube for a while, but I'm trying to figure out how to do Riverside, which you and I are talking on now. And I'm just scared of it and haven't looked at it. And I need to just dive in and tackle it. But it just feels like one more thing on my list of things to do. So I started it because I love the stories. I love storytelling. I mean, I think in another life, I would have loved to have been like an Oprah Winfrey and just sat and talked to people and listened to their stories all day. That would have been my dream come true. And this is just an avenue for me to further connect people and share people's stories and highlight people's successes and share people's challenges in a very real way, in the hopes of helping them.
And I think that ties back really well to where we started in the beginning. The theme that you learned from your dad about giving back. You're giving back and frankly paying it forward, right? That you're using the platform that you can establish to help future generations learn and grow stronger as they go. So giving back, growing stronger, I think it's been a wonderful theme. Robin, I've really enjoyed this conversation today. If others heard something that they've enjoyed and they'd like to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact? And quick note, I have your email address and your LinkedIn and your website address, and I'll post those with the podcast. But how do you like to be contacted?
I would say either directly through LinkedIn or directly through my email. Both work. I'm on both all the time. And there sometimes are moments where maybe I'm in the middle of kicking off a search and I have hundreds of emails coming in. So I never know when that moment's going to be. And so I really do my best to get back to everybody. And if I haven't and I've missed something, please don't hesitate to ping me a second time. It's never intentional for me not to get back to you, but every once in a while, just as we were talking about in the barrage of emails through LinkedIn and email, sometimes things get missed. And it's never intentional. So please don't hesitate to ping me a second or third time if need be.
Got it. Sounds good. All right, Robin, it's been a pleasure.
So nice to
Thank
talk to
you.
you. Thank you so much.
Not only for the conversation, but also, quite frankly, for the inspiration. I really like the messages. I really like the causes you support. And as a veteran, I appreciate the your kind words there as well.
Yeah,
So
and I thank
thank
you.
you for this
I thank
conversation
you.
today.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.